Yeah, today we are talking about Feast and Famine. And so I guess by Feast and Famine, what we really mean is that sort of up and down with running a business, especially around the financial side. And this happens with, I guess, me and Nick have sort of talked about this a fair bit where, you get the work, you're working on a project and you're too busy on the project to really do all the things you need to get leads and make work come in. So that's one side of it. I think Feast and Famine is definitely one of those things, a bit like getting clients. It never, ever really goes away just because of things like payment cycles and stuff like that. I've never, found that payments are consistent. You might finish a couple of large projects and start a new large project all in the same week, and the payments happen in a couple of days, whereas, the week before, nothing much is happening, or the month before, nothing much is happening. But we want to talk about actually, I guess, leveling that out. And there's obviously stuff around, improving our sales and working on systems so we can, get recurring revenue and those sorts of things. But one thing I wanted to start with, which is probably, I guess, not the obvious thing and probably a really, really boring thing, but it's the thing that probably made the biggest difference for me, which was, I guess, setting up like a runway and actually changing how I did my banking. So that's what I'm just going to, I guess, kind of rant on that for a little bit. So people don't understand what a runway is. Basically having an amount of money that will allow you to, keep in business without needing any work for a certain amount of time. I put mine at about 3 months. That's where I'm comfortable. And I watch that runway essentially when it starts to get under the 3 months. It's like, I need to make sure I've got more padding there. But getting that set up is really important because then we don't need to get desperate and chase leads. And I think that's another sort of hidden thing here with that Feast and Famine, that when we get in that famine mode, we're more likely to take on crappy work and lower budget stuff. And then that actually hits us and hurts us more in the long run. So yeah, runway, super important. The next thing I was going to say is about banking. And again, not very sexy stuff, but a lot of people, I think when they start out, they just get paid and they see that as their own money. They nab it, grab it, take it, spend it. And the Feast and Famine cycle, it's not often that you're changing the amount of money that comes in. It's that what really is going on is where, I guess, evening out the spending of that. So the obvious thing that I did for myself was totally remove my banking and my business banking and having that as a separate account, and then even setting up 2 accounts within that. So I have one for tax, and that's purely because tax is such a big thing that in that Feast and Famine cycle, if you've got a certain amount of money and you don't have money set aside for tax, and your tax comes and you're like, oh my God, I've just put myself into famine mode because you haven't really prepared for it. So me getting paid into an account, my business account, I don't really look at it. It just pays me a wage, and my wage is reasonably modest. It's the same sort of wage I would get if I worked for someone else. And then every now and again, I look at some of that profit and I start to take that back for myself. But by doing that, it means I'm never really worrying about what's going on in the business. I know I've got a runway there, and it kind of removes that fluctuation part, like automatically. It's the same money that I'm getting. It's not like I'm needing to get extra sales. And I think a lot of people, if it doesn't matter what you're earning, if it's 50, 100, 200, I don't, whatever the amount that you're earning, if that's enough for you to get by, the Feast and Famine cycle can still happen if you're not setting up an account where you're, I guess, drip feeding that to your life, because you might get a couple of payments and be like, I'm rich. And you go and buy a new TV and then, or whatever, that's the sort of stuff so that was my first, I guess, real big tip around that runway and banking. And I think there's some really obvious stuff around, I guess, sales and marketing. So I don't know. I'm not going to just keep rabbiting on, but does anyone have any thoughts? Nick, do you want to talk about some stuff around? I don't know.
So,
yep.
Well, firstly, let's summarize what you're saying there. So basically, the core lesson is business money is not your money. So have a business account, and then you pay yourself a modest amount, and basically save. Like put money aside in an account. You can call it runway, you can call it whatever you want, buffer, savings, but build up a buffer of cash that if you do go through a famine phase, you're not going to like freak out and go desperate, because that's probably the biggest thing that happens to people when they go through famine is they get desperate for sales, and they like panic and they stress, and it's a hard time. And sometimes people don't make it through that, and they panic so much that they try to go find a job, or they go do things they would never normally do. So when you've got money, you've got a lot less stress. And so that's basically what Corey is doing. He's setting aside money, so he knows that with no projects, he's got 3 months he can survive. And the way he achieves that is by paying himself an actual set wage every single week. And so rain, hail, or shine, he's getting paid. And that's covering living and all that sort of stuff that he needs. And the rest of it's basically staying in the business. And then he can then choose to pull it out as profit, or use it to pay bills, or use it to pay taxes, or whatever it is. But you don't have those options if you're not setting yourself up that way. So set that up. For me, that's one thing that I am not the best at. I have traditionally always gone and just like taken whatever money there is and used it, and then like, oh, tax, more money comes in, pay my tax that way. But yeah, it's one of those. Every time I start doing it, something will happen, something will come up, and I'll just end up blowing all my money because but more comes in, so it's kind of okay. So speaking of getting more in, with the Feast or Famine, that whole feast phase, the main problem is a lot of work comes in at once, usually. And so you don't have time to do anything else. And I don't know what it is. I don't know how the universe seems to make it work this way, but projects coming in never seem to align themselves really well to give you like, hey, let me just work on 1 or 2 things at once. It's always like, no. Hey, Nick, I know you were quiet the past 2 months, so I'm going to give you 9 projects. You can do 9. Don't complain anymore. And so it's like, so there's a couple of things. Like number one is a lot of time it's work coming in, whether it's from existing clients, new clients you never met before, whatever it is. Scheduling the work is kind of important. Like, don't just say yes to everyone. Like, hey, Nick, I need this. When can you get it done by? Sure, if you had nothing else on, you could get it done by next week, or in 2 weeks, or in a month, or whatever. But hey, you've got other things on. And so you need to be able to push back enough to say, cool, let me have a look at my schedule. I can slot this in starting in 3 weeks' time. It's like giving yourself a bit of a buffer from a time standpoint with work coming in, whether that's, again, from new clients or existing or whatever. The problem is people get scared that they're going to miss out on the work. And it's a risk. If someone needs something now and you can't do it, then it is a risk, but it's a risk you need to take if you don't want to sit there and be like overwhelmed with work. But do your best, even if you can't, even if it's like, you know what, I'm going to have to give in. All right. But at least you tried, and there's going to be a lot of people that it will work for. And so that will help you spread out the work a bit more, which already helps with that whole evening out things. So that's number one. Number two is looking at how you actually get new work, which is a big one. You can't just rely on it to come in, because that's how the universe seems to want to screw you over. And also, even with the work coming in like in a feast, it still works out over the course of a year that you kind of aren't making enough usually. Like, you're surviving, but not really thriving. In order to thrive, you need to be a bit more proactive about it. So look at setting up some sort of lead generation channels, whether that's things like networking and being proactive with networking, whether it's having referral partners that you reach out to regularly, whether that's, even communicating with former clients and reaching out to them to check in how they're going. Keeping front of mind about what you're doing reminds people that you exist. It reminds people what you do. And so if they have, there's a concept called mind share. Like, when someone is like, even if they need, let's say, a new website, or they need a brochure done, it doesn't have a lot of mind share usually compared to everything else they have going on. But if you're just there all the time and you remind them a lot, eventually it does. It's like, oh, you know what? Actually, I do need that brochure. I'm going to reach out. And so it's how by being visible and by reminding people about the things that you do, that's how you increase the mind share that they allocate towards that problem. And that's how you have a chance of catching them when it is something that they're focusing on. Because I don't know about you guys, I've got a business, I've got 2. And so, like, any one problem or any one thing that I know I need to do is one thing. It's not that big of a deal. To a service provider, it's the one thing for them that they care about. But for me, it's like, no, that's like 5%, man. Like not even, it's like 2% of whatever. Yeah, it's something I'd like to do. Yeah, it's something that's important to do, but I'm not sitting there thinking about it all the time. And so you kind of need to be regularly in touch, like soft touches to kind of remind them you exist to help increase the mind share. So Corey, you?
Yep. Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, every client feels like they're every single client, that they're your priority. But I think one of the things that you kind of were hinting at and or alluding to, but didn't sort of, capture, is just that for me, I personally find that existing clients are so much more profitable than finding new leads. And I think a lot of people constantly chasing those new leads, and just what you're saying, like keeping top of mind, keeping in contact with clients is just such it's a cheaper way to get more work, because there's just less money and time wasted on actually, the process of getting them to hire you.
Well, so I've a friend of mine, Clifford. He has a piece of software called My Web Audit, but also he has an agency that does really, really well. And he actually developed that software because the bulk of his business comes from his existing client base. And so his big thing is he reaches out to clients and he kind of audits all their stuff. Even if he's built the site, he still audits it and says, here's where we can improve, which sounds like, no, man, I don't want my client to think that I don't know what I'm doing, that I built him a terrible website. It's like, no. Like things change over time. Their goals might change over time. Business grows, your skills improve over time. It's okay to say, hey, even though we built it and it was the right thing at the time for you, there's always ways you can improve, especially now you have data and things like that. And so, so he's really proactive about reaching out to his clients. And so every quarter, I think he reaches out to every single client on his care plans, which recurring revenue is probably one of the things you're going to focus on. But so he reaches out to every single client that he has, and reviews with them what their goals are, what they're trying to achieve, where they're at, and how he could help. And he sells to them. Like when COVID hit, in his software company, every agency, like not every agency, but he dropped like 40% or something like crazy. All the agencies were canceling their plans because they were scared. And so he was like, holy crap, my revenue dropped heaps there. But in his agency, because he was reaching out to people, they were like, we need plans for COVID. We need to tackle COVID. And so he was like, his revenue in the agency like skyrocketed, and he was freaking out. He's like, I don't know how we can keep up with all this work. So he like great guy, and he has so many great systems and processes for reaching out to clients, reviewing their stuff, making recommendations. But he's like, man, mining your client base is the number one way to make money, basically. And so he puts people on like sometimes they'll do like 10 grand like projects spread out over like 3 or 4 months, where he does like a couple of things each month. Like things like that. Like he's really, really good at it. And he's kind of always recommended that I do that a lot more, but because I do get like new projects coming in, which is what I enjoy, I prefer to do that rather than reaching out and fiddling with other people's stuff. But if you're trying to get more money and you want more revenue, then that can be a great option, is reaching out to existing clients proactively and making recommendations of things that you could do together, and then putting a plan in and putting them on almost like a retainer. So retainers are very nice.
Segue to retainers and segue to retainers and bloody recurring revenue. So I mean, that's obviously a huge thing. If you're in web, I think you're very, very lucky, because there's so many easy places to get recurring revenue happening, especially stuff like care plans, hosting, domain names, anything like that. There's opportunity for markup, and it is regular. Domains and hosting happen, domains happen every year or so. Hosting, you can bill by the month. Care plans are done by the month. So getting that set up and selling those, if you're in web and you do web, is just huge. I think I've got about nearly 40 care plans, and that is, well, it's essentially the first part of my week. Well, first week in my month, all of the care plan stuff goes out, and it's like I don't need to. It covers me for that whole first couple of weeks. So even with my runway now, if I look at that and say it's based on 3 months with me not getting any income, it's like, well, I've got a care plan income as well. So it really is longer than what I have the trajectory set up for. And I started off with absolutely no care plans and no idea of how to get people on care plans. Even once I had WordPress sites set up, I'd been setting people up and not putting them on care plans. And I'll just talk, I guess, a bit of a tip around care plans. The thing that really helped me with care plans was not presenting it as an optional extra. And people sort of say, oh, do you make it mandatory? And mandatory is a bit of a forced word here. It's a little bit of a strange word to use. Of course, it's not mandatory. I'm not forcing anyone to do anything. It's the same with, any project. Nothing's mandatory. You don't have to work with me. So and there are situations where someone could opt out of having a care plan, and I would tell them what they need to do and scare the hell out of them. And chances are they would do a care plan. But really all I do is present it as standard, and it's just put in there in my sales conversation, in the proposals. That's one thing. People put it in their proposals and they put it on another page and say additional extras, and it's like, for me, it's just, that's a part of the fee. There's a monthly fee for care plans. And the difference between before and after, before I used to do it as optional, 0 sales. When I made it so it looked like it was standard, not mandatory, but standard. Just in the proposals, in the sales process, I haven't had a single person even bat an eyelid. No one's even gone. And I thought they would. And I have some pretty good rebuttals on why they need to have a care plan, but no one's ever gone, oh, I don't know about this thing. I've never even had anyone asked to explain it.
It's part of the solution. So
yep.
As a professional service provider, ideally, I mean, there's a couple of different ways you can go with it. But ideally, if you're trying to be more of a professional about it, you make recommendations. So you're not saying, hey, oh, you want a website? Cool. What color is it? How many pages do you need? And like taking an order, you're asking them questions around their goals, objectives, and things like that. And you're making a recommendation that will help them achieve that goal. So if you're recommending a website and they're going to get a website, you'd be pretty terrible if you didn't recommend that they maintain the damn website. Yeah. And that's all a care plan is. It's basically maintaining their damn website. Like, it's kind of like having insurance on a car. A car dealer isn't letting you drive out without showing them that you have insurance, at least in Australia. So same deal with the website. It's like, no, you need to have a maintenance plan. Otherwise, this is going to go terribly, because especially if you're building in WordPress, WordPress has a lot of weak points, a lot of attack vectors that things can go wrong in. And so it's not like the old days where you just build a HTML page and then it's fine because there's nothing they can do to it. No, man, we've got databases, plugins, forms, all this crap that can go wrong. And so they need to have some sort of maintenance plan. And so as a professional, if they're going to spend like over 10 grand on a website, they'd be pretty stupid not to add like at least $100 a month ongoing to make sure their website is maintained effectively and minimizes their chances of getting hacked and things going wrong, because that'll be a pretty big impact on their business if something does go wrong.
Yep.
And so that's what Corey does. It's what I do as well. It's when they are, when we make our recommendations, we tell them, well, so you have a site, there's going to be this ongoing fee as well, which is going to cover this stuff. And when you explain that, people don't say, oh, do I need to do that? And if they do, it's pretty easy to explain. Well, yeah, I'm not gonna waste my time building you a site, and then you in 3 months it gets hacked or something, like, just because you're bloody cheap. You don't say that though.
Imagine the expense that you're gonna have to spend when it does get hacked, and you come back to me and I'm like, oh, you could have been paying $100 a month, but now you're gonna have to pay $5,000 to get this thing fixed. Like,
yeah.
Or whatever it is.
I've had people, I had someone, like, when I first started, who actually questioned it and did say no. They're like, no, we can maintain our own website, it'll be fine. I'm like, all right. They came back after, I want to say 3-4 months. And they were like, oh, we want you to maintain it. And of course I was like, yeah, cool, no problem. Went to go take over and put onto my hosting and everything. And it had been hacked, and it was like, they just got blacklisted because they were serving, it was like Dropbox, it was like a Dropbox login screen.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I had to clean that up, and yeah, bloody pain in the ass. You know, like after that, I went, you know what, this is real. Like this isn't me bullshitting people to get them to give me more money. Like people do get hacked. Like I've had people come on board who they were like, their site was so bad. It was this old Divi site they'd never like touched after they built it, and it was serving like ads for Viagra and stuff. And I was like, man, I didn't even want to try to clean. Oh, did you buy some, Trey? um, like what is? I'm like, oh, I bought some.
No, I had the same thing happen to a site. So yeah.
Yeah. And so I was like, crap. So I like did my best to clean it up. And I'm like, but I'm not like, you guys don't even have a license for Divi. This hasn't been updated in forever. I'm not buying you a license. You can buy it yourself if you want, but I'm not maintaining this. Like I'll clean it up for you, but we're building you a new site. And I built them a new site. So I looked at it and went, no, man, this is bad. And the site was, let's be honest, it was fugly. Yeah, it was definitely in their interest to do a new one, which they did. So that was fine.
So I wanted to talk quickly, I guess, about some retainer options for, I guess, designers that aren't, doing web stuff. Because like I said, I think if you're in web, you're actually lucky. There's some things that are almost gifted to you, like hosting and stuff, that you can just put some markup and it's standard. I think clients understand that there's monthly fees with some of this stuff. It's not a really hard sell. But with, I guess, design clients, you can just start to look at the clients that come to you all the time and try and incentivize them to move that to a retainer or type scenario where you're giving them a certain amount of hours for a service. So it doesn't matter if you just do social tiles for someone or you're doing posters or whatever it is, even if it's random ad hoc stuff. There's clients that I work with that I do their brand management for. And really what that means is random stuff. They'll have newspapers and stuff that get in contact them and they want certain assets. And rather than them looking them up or getting the right stuff for them, it's just something that I do. And it can be different. It could be doing a poster for one of their franchises, or it could be something different week to week. But the fact is that there's a monthly fee for a certain amount of time that I allocate for them. And the benefit that I sell when I do retainers is not to reduce my price. A lot of people will reduce their price and go and use that as an incentive. So they'll say, oh, we're doing about 5 hours worth of work with you every week. I'll take 20% off if you book it in and I, we do it month to month. But the way that I like to incentivize people is just in turnaround time and in the fact that I'm going to be available for them. So availability and turnaround. So not on a maintenance or, retainer. You might have to wait a week or so. I can't guarantee that I can get to the work. And it might take a few days to actually even produce that stuff. So, the people that are on retainers, that's what I'm sort of saying, that they'll see it in 3 days or whatever we agree on, depending on the scope of the work. So that's been successful for me, and it means that I haven't had to reduce what I'm actually offering to incentivize people to go onto retainers. So, and the way that I work retainers with clients, the way that I have that structured is that it's month to month as far as the payments. Stuff can roll over from week to week. So say if I'm allocating, 5 hours a week, if we use 4 hours in 1 week, that 1 hour can roll over week to week, but it can't roll over month to month. So if at the end of the month they've got 5 hours left and they haven't used it, then that's bad luck. And what we do, the way that I sort of, again, explain this so that it makes sense to a client, is that we do it in 3-month blocks. So they sort of commit for 3 months. And we just review it at the end of the 3 months and say, are you still cool to, continue, or do we need to allocate it, or change the allocation? Do we need to add more? Because some people will bug you more and then you have to charge them on top of their retainer. You're outside of scope, we need to do this as something else. So it's something you can, I guess, review with the client. So that's been successful for me by doing it as something where the hours don't roll over from month to month. So you don't build up this huge amount of work that you need to do for someone. And then also that, you can review it with them every sort of quarter. So I don't know. That was my thoughts on retainers for, I guess, traditional design stuff.
There's an element of like, it's one of those things where you got to kind of pick based on who your clients are and the services you offer. So if you know you have, like what Corey's saying, if you have clients who ask you for brochures regularly, it's like, hey, listen, you're asking for brochures regularly. Why don't we kind of make it a thing, make it formal, and because then you get the benefits of me actually scheduling, like allocating time for you. You don't have to wait. And so rather than, let's say, dropping fees, you put a benefit around them needing to normally wait. They don't, gives you access. That's what my care plans do. People have access to me. If someone who's not on a care plan asks me to do something, then they're going to have probably a month wait before I can even look at it. And they probably I've got to be really honest, they have about a week wait before I reply to their email, because I'm really bad with emails and I just don't really care that much. But yeah, so, but in order to do that, it means that when people aren't on a retainer, you can't be like turning around their work in 24 hours. You need to kind of be pushing back a little bit and delaying the work. There has to be a reason for people to do stuff. Like even care plans, there needs to be a reason why they jump on a care plan versus just maybe hiring you. If it's going to be cheaper for them and easier for them just to, like, if something goes wrong, to call you and say, hey, fix this, and you fix it in 2 seconds and charge them like $50, then why would they commit to paying you $100 a month? There's no benefit. It's actually worse off for them. So with anything that you're doing as a retainer, there needs to be a benefit for them, which means either you do need to potentially go down the path of doing something like, here's a discounted rate for it, which is the laziest way you can do it. And I think it's a terrible way to do it because you make less money. The other option is to make it so it's just a better workflow for them. So that means you need to make your existing without retainer stuff worse if you want to push retainers. It's like, hey, if you're not on a retainer, here's how terrible your service is going to be. Right? Like, I mean, without making it sound like that, but it's like, here's the process that happens with this, because I have to dedicate myself to my retainer clients. So if you'd like this, here's how it works with the retainer.
I think part of that is, again, you're obviously not framing it to them like you're treating them poorly, but it's basically,
sometimes
I think, well, you don't outwardly say it to them, but it's almost like one of the other points you made early on is with some of this feast and famine. An easy way to sort of handle some of this stuff is to just actually say no and push back, and really by not being super available to these people and not being super responsive, like, that's essentially a way to say that people, when I do that, people say, I know you're really busy, or I might reply to them. So I'm not unresponsive, but I say, I can't do that for at least 2 weeks. I've got a lot of stuff on. I've got a lot of stuff booked in. And then what happens with those people is they start to go, I know you're really busy. Do you have time to do this next week? And they start to change how they approach me. And then that starts to bring up that situation where I can say, you kind of contacted me every 2 weeks for like a few hours worth of work. Do we want to put you on a retainer? It means I can book you in and you won't have to wait a week or 2 weeks before you get this stuff done. They're like, that sounds really good. So yeah, it totally is that, but you're not actually outwardly saying, I don't like you because you're not a retainer.
I've got to admit, I've said that before. Not those
well, I haven't.
Words. Yeah, no, not those exact words, but I've said, they're like, hey, can you do something? I'm like, sorry, man, I prioritize people on a care plan. That's how I work. So, because I said something about, well, what would I pay blah, blah, per month? And it's like, well, outside of the fact that you get all those things that a care plan includes, it also gives you access. People who want a care plan, I reply to quickly, because they're paying me money. Like, I reply to them quickly. You maybe will pay me some money, but those guys are guaranteed pay me money, and so I have to reply to them. I don't have to reply to you that quick. So yeah, it's just how it works. And I've said that before, but the right kind of client that you can actually say that to without it being like a big problem for them. It's always matching clients. But yeah, I've said that before.
Hey Trey, I did want to ask, do you have any stuff specifically around retainers for you? Because I know you're someone like Rich is more web-based, and me and Nick's web-based. I do a lot of, I'm I guess across both, but you're definitely design-based. Yeah.
You go both ways, eh?
Yes, I do.
So, full disclosure, everything you're talking about here, not everything. Everything you're talking about here, I'm doing like 8% of that. and not doing the rest very well. So this is a kind of a wake up call for me, to maybe change some things, the way I've been doing things. But to your point about retainers, I mean, I have some clients that are adamant, like, they don't even want to hear the R word. They just want me to bill them, per project. And even though every year I'm like, this would be better if we were on a retainer, here's what that looks like. They're like, no, my boss doesn't want to do it, whatever. The retainer projects that I do have are typically time based. So, if it's a campaign that we're going to run for 3 months, usually is the minimum, somewhere between 3 and 6 months, but we'll do a minimum of 3 months, and it's going to be X number of dollars per month for us to run the campaign. And part of that retainer includes your ad spend. And then we'll look at, how are we doing after 3 months and decide if we want to go 3 more months. That's about the only real retainer I have currently. I do have, the rest of them are all just either hourly or project. And with the hourly ones, I have a master services agreement that says, what it is, but we're getting in the weeds on that. That doesn't help with the feast or famine thing. I actually am for the first time since I started my company, having a little bit of a famine right now, and kind of freaking out. So this talk is very timely for me to hear and maybe make some adjustments.
I did just realize I said, oh, cool. But that's not when you're like, I'm going through it, and I'm like, yeah, cool. But I meant cool that it's a timely, hopefully it's a helpful conversation. Not yes. No, anyway. Okay, so that's, sounds similar sort of setup to what I was saying with traditional design type retainers as well. So that's cool. That's good. That just sort of, I guess, reaffirms the same sort of stuff. And especially with that 3 month, I seem to feel like that works. You're kind of reviewing stuff with the quarter with these, I guess, design stuff. Like I said, web stuff, it's really, really easy to put people on these monthly situations just because of other parts of the business or the web works monthly. They're, whether they've got a Zoom account or they're paying for other stuff, it's just, the same thing. You need hosting. I'm sorry, you can't have a website without hosting, and then I'll organize it for you, and then I'm putting a markup on it, and there you go, you're making some money on it. So
and you can continue to escalate that as well, right? So so you have kind of your general level of maintenance, and then you kind of have the proactive stuff where you're looking at improving things for them. And so when you start talking to your clients around things like business goals, so it's a really good idea if you do reach out to your clients fairly regularly around how they're going in their business, things that they're working on. Is there anything you're struggling with right now? Is there anything I can help you with right now? Stuff like that. Start having those conversations, but from an angle of like, I care about where you guys are at and what you're trying to achieve. And so I'm talking to you because, hey, I've got all this knowledge in my head. I don't know, you might say something and I might have an idea for you. Or it could be something, you could be struggling with something that I can actually do for you. And so you start talking to them around what they're trying to do and where they're trying to go. And, they'll say, oh, yeah, like Trey, yeah, look, man, I'm kind of actually in a bit of a famine phase at the moment, which is kind of freaking me out a little bit. It's like, oh, okay, cool. What do you mean? Like, tell me more about that. And then, you say, well, I'd always just kind of got work and just come in. And now, like, it seems like it's kind of dried up. And now if I was selling, like, if I had an option for like a lead gen service, like that would be amazing intro for me to start talking about, well, man, have you considered like, and like outline a pathway for you. So if you start reaching out, Trey, if you start reaching out to your clients that traditionally do a lot of work and say, hey, listen, guys, how's it going? What's going on in the business? What do you guys have coming up? And they say, oh, we've got a couple of trade shows. And say, oh, cool, man. What are you guys going to do for the like signage or for the brochures or whatever? Like, have you considered doing something really tailored for the audience there or something like that? And so you start leading them down that journey of like maybe doing work with you. And so you being proactive about reaching out, and then also being proactive, getting the clients to be proactive about their upcoming needs. So like with web stuff, it's really easy because you can do things like conversion rate optimization. It's like, hey, what are you guys doing to market? Oh, well, we're doing SEO and whatever. Cool. Like, so number one, you can offer SEO as a web person, and find someone who does it, to kind of white label or even refer and get a referral fee. It's like, okay, cool. So you're getting traffic to the site. How are they? Is it converting? Like, oh, it's, doing like 3% conversion rate. It's like, do you want to look at trying to improve that? If you're getting like 1,000 people and you're getting a 3% conversion rate, like going up even 1% is going to give you like 10 more contacts a month. Just that's 1%. Would 10 more contacts a month be helpful for you? And they're like, well, yeah, man, if I get 10 more leads, that's freaking amazing. Okay, cool. Well, why don't we look at doing conversion rate stuff? Here's how that would work. And then bang, that leads you into like offering another service. Obviously it has to be stuff that you do, or you're comfortable adding. But yeah, reaching out to clients, you've got, when you reach out to clients, you've got here's services that you offer that can help them with where they are, things like keeping them safe, protecting them, but things like helping them improve their position. Then you got things that you don't necessarily do that you could potentially either add or refer people to. But if you're going there and you're trying to help people and you do that regularly and you make it a habit, it's going to lead to revenue for you somehow, whether that's referral fees, whether it's extra services, whether it's.
Were you going to say something, Troy?
Yeah. It reminds me of, it's a little bit of a callback to one of our other sessions where we talked about scope creep and the idea of a phase 2 and a phase 3. And if you're keeping a kind of a whiteboard of those things for each client, you can go back and go, oh, well, we talked about these next phase things for you. Let's circle back on that. Let's make something happen with that. That's a good opportunity to kind of make some things happen.
And I was going to say, with reaching out to clients, first of all, I want to say hi to Leanne because she jumped on and I didn't say hello. So hello, Leanne. Go on, say hello. Oh, well.
Sorry,
one thing how are you going?
Good.
That's
got
good.
The time wrong.
Oh, sorry.
Shoot.
We moved it forward. We moved it forward a little bit. So I don't know if that's better for people over in the US or worse.
Yeah, it's about 8:30 here.
Yeah.
8:40, something like that.
Yep.
It works.
Anyway, good to have you on the call anyway. So I was going to say something quickly with that, reaching out to existing clients, and that was really that. I do that fairly often, and I don't do that in a sales way. Like, I don't get in touch with someone and say, oh, I've got some ideas for you or stuff that you should be doing. If it's been a while, I think you can actually fully go straight to them and be like, hey, how's business going? I haven't touched base with you for ages. But don't just ask them how their business is going. It's a bit like a friend, You might ask them about their emotional needs. You might say, how are you feeling? I haven't talked to you for ages. What's been going on? It's the same sort of thing. You're not going and saying, you don't say, hey, can you come over to my house? We're going to have a party. It's that sort of thing. You get in touch with the client and don't sort of lead with the sort of sales idea. You ask how they're doing. And if they make some sort of noises where it's like, it could be better, or, and even just in the act of doing that, you'll find that people go, oh, we're doing all right. But, since you're in touch with me, that it might be something coming up for you in a week or so. That totally happens. And another real genuine way that I tend to get in touch with clients is I kind of know I work with a couple of niches, which is good because I can reuse this approach with multiple people. But also I'm just focusing on the better clients rather than every single client I've ever dealt with. But it's remembering the sort of industries they're in and the things that they care about, and even personal things. And then if you see something like a news article or a meme or something like that, I've sent people that I have that are in hospitality, for example. I've seen like hospo memes with the pandemic where everything's locked down. And you see these great memes and you send them to them and you're like, hey, this is pretty funny. You might be able to use it on your social media, or this just made me think of you. Something really simple. This just made me think of you. I don't know if it's any use. And it's just a 2-second thing. I'm still consuming that content anyway. I'm not like going, oh, I need to go and spend a couple of hours and try and find stuff to send to clients. It's just if I see something in the news or on social media, I'm like, oh, that's funny to me, and it might be useful to someone or funny to someone else. And it's just taking the extra second to send it to them. It's just made me think of you. Isn't this funny? Or this might be useful for you. And that just keeps that relationship going and building, and in an organic way where there's not a need to be doing that sort of stuff like a sale to them. It starts that conversation, and often it leads to sales because you're, I guess, like early on, Nick was sort of talking about that stuff where you're kind of trying to remain in someone's mind and be a part of the conversation with them.
Top of mind or front of mind.
Yeah, exactly.
So the big thing here with what you're saying, for everyone, whether you're listening live or whatever, watching this on YouTube, maybe, you need to schedule this stuff. Like Corey, that happens with Corey, not because he like gets desperate for work and then messages people. He does that. It's a planned event. It's a planned function that he performs. And that's the big thing with lead gen and everything. If you don't want to be stuck in feast or famine, you can't just be reactive about everything. Like you can't just react to work coming in and then do the work and then react to being desperate and having nothing and then try to do something. Like you need to really plan your life out and the way you structure your business. So you need to schedule time to do things. Like if you want to blog, you can't just blog when things go quiet. Like, okay, I better write a blog post now. If you want to do it properly, then you need to schedule that and do it like every week or whatever. Like even if it's just allocating, an hour or two a week spread over a couple of days to do stuff that's proactive for your business, that helps a lot. And it makes a huge difference. So Leanne's saying that Wednesday for her is business day. For me, it's like I try to do every day something for the business first, like small, because I find that I'm not really that good at context switching when I go into creative mode with design to then write something like business smart, like even now, business smart, what does that even mean? So, and I'm even talking about business stuff. Jeez, you're terrible, Nick. So if I start designing, like let's say I hit 3:30 or something, which is when I usually don't want to do anything anymore and make myself a coffee. After that, there's no way I can go in and write a blog post. I've been doing design work. Like I can't switch personally. But if I do something first and it's like a half hour to an hour, and let's say I lay out a structure for a blog post around, I don't know how people measure success, which is something I may have done, laid out very recently. Then after that, I can go and start work and do work stuff. And that was something I just spent like half an hour on. So yeah, you need to schedule this stuff. So things like reaching out to clients, you put it in your calendar and do it as like a once a week thing. It could be, I don't know, every Thursday, or it could be once a month. Like you reach out to former clients. And so you have a little template you use, or you do like Corey's way, where you actually put a bit of energy into finding something that they might like and sending them something. Or you can do like a little, hey, client name, how's things over at business name, hope you're doing well, something along those lines, where it's just a general, just checking in, make sure things are going well, how's business, stuff like that. You do like a generic-ish greeting. You might even have a couple of them so you can mix and match for the next time you contact them. And so yeah, you need to schedule it. You can't just like wait until you're desperate and then reach out, because guess what's going to happen? Your interaction is going to sound desperate because you are desperate. It happens. It happens when I don't know how, I don't know why, people can like smell it. And when you're desperate, they smell it. So yeah, don't stink of desperation.
I mean, that's, I guess, got this sort of links back to the very first point that I was trying to make with, I guess, getting your banking and a runway in order, because it just removes that actual desperation in the moment. And I get it. I've been there. I know what it's like when you need the job, and that's totally cool. But the last thing you want to sound like is someone who needs the job. Not only because you'll make worse decisions, but you'll actually push the client away, like in a negative way, because people, back away from that sort of stuff. They back away from people that are needy and desperate, and they lean in towards confidence. So yeah, I think that's really ties back to that first point. Yeah, they've got a couple of questions in the group, so maybe we should go over them.
We had one about will making a course fix all these problems?
No.
Okay.
Tell us,
So I can tell you
that.
now. I can tell you now. No. Adding a course adds more problems because you need to bloody build the damn thing. I think the question was a bit more around like, how do I know if I have enough info for a course? Yeah, how do you know if you have enough content for a course or funnel offer? So Angelita asked this, like, I have a couple of lead magnets I could probably convert to a 3 or 5 day challenge course. It's possible that my lead magnet is too much of an how-to ebook versus an actual lead generator. The two I'm rocking these days are using blah, blah, blah. So there's some stuff around what it is. If I converted these, okay, if I converted these, I'm thinking if I converted these, I could help break the feast or famine cycle. So let's break this down. Basically, there's two parts to this. Number one is, do I have enough content to create a funnel or create a course? The second part is, would either of those things help with the whole feast or famine thing? It depends. How do you know if you have enough for a course? Well, you know what? If you can talk about something for about half an hour without actually going into detail about how, like if there's a lot of why stuff, like why you do this, and you've got a lot of how stuff and you can go for more than half an hour, you potentially have enough for a course, maybe. So that's what I found. I had to do a half-hour presentation around my sales process. I was struggling to keep it under half an hour, really struggling. And that was without me going into any detail. I'm like, this is enough for a course. And then everyone liked it. So I just did a course. Can courses help? No, because courses have the same friggin' problem. You need to market the crap out of it. Like, dude, when I launched my course, everyone was like, oh, Nick's launching your course, and bang, bang, bang. And I had like 200 plus people buy it, which is great. And as all this money comes in, it's like, holy crap, I'm rich. But guess what happens after when everyone stops promoting it? Like nothing. And so if I want to keep making money off my course, guess what happens? I need to now spend time on promoting my course, jumping on podcasts, writing content, doing videos. I need to do a funnel. And so funnels can help if you get people entering the funnel. So if it's appealing and your ideal client is going to enter your funnel, funnels can help. And the way funnels work is, you know, hey, here's this checklist you can download. Like, oh, cool, that could be helpful. Download the checklist, get a couple of emails or get content or something that kind of pushes them along that journey, and it builds up that authority and builds up that whole know, like, and trust element of working with someone. Like, oh, this person's really cool. And then it ends with some sort of an offer to, hey, buy my course in a really nice way. And then they buy the course, and that can help. Or, you know, buy my service. It doesn't need to be for a course. It can be for a service, or let's have a chat about your situation. Now I'm willing to chat to this person because I've downloaded this free resource they had. They've given me some value in an email exchange. I'm now comfortable enough with them to actually take the next step where they maybe wouldn't normally go, yes, let's have a strategy session for free.
So I want to backtrack just a quick little bit.
Yes.
And you started off with, you know, does it help? And you said, it depends. And I'm going to say that it can, and it definitely does. It's if in the situation where if you don't have anything to do at the moment, it can be a really good thing that you can start to do for yourself rather than waiting for a client or waiting for something to happen. I know both in my situation and yours, Nick, that happened a little bit more organically. And this is probably where for myself, that's how I feel, where it's harder because I was teaching people something anyway, and the suggestion was turn this into a course. And I'm like, well, I'm kind of half done. And then I'm like, okay, cool, I'm going to sell this thing. And now I'm trying to continue my workload and do this course on the side, which is a lot of work. And then there is the second thing too, which is a different conversation around, you know, the passive income idea, and that passive income isn't rarely passive. Even once the course is done, you're going to have to do work to sell it. But in terms of the feast and famine stuff, sure, it's going to give you some income. It's going to help work come in. So if you're at a phase in the famine cycle where you don't actually have something to do, turning those things that you know and the things that you have into a course is not a bad idea at all, and it would totally help. But there is work there, so it's
significant work. But
it becomes your job. It becomes your job.
The biggest benefit to a digital product versus a service is Feast is not a problem. So with services, when I'm building websites, if I have too many come on, it's a problem. I can't physically deliver that much work. Course, if I had 1,000 people buy it tomorrow, I would just be happy. Like, there is literally no downside to 1,000 people buying tomorrow. It's just going to be money in my account. I don't have to do any work because I've already done the work of building the course. So if everyone knows 1,000 people that want to buy sales courses, let me know. But yeah, so that would be like, that's all great. But if I had even 10 people want a website tomorrow, I'm screwed. There's no way. Like, I'm going to have to outsource or just, again, push back and say, no, I need to schedule this ahead. And, you know, realistically 10 sites, if it's just me, that's a lot of work. That's something I'll probably do over the course of, I don't know, 6 to 8 months normally, with the way I work, maybe even longer. So yeah. It's there is benefit to having a course there. If it's doing its thing, if people are buying it, then yeah, that's amazing. Just keep in mind that when people think about courses, there's this real hype around courses and setting up courses and establishing courses. It's not that easy. It's not that easy to get it to something that's going to make money. And for, you know, every person who creates a course and has like over 100 people buy it, like Corey and I happen to, there's a lot of people who create a course and then get like not much in terms of sales. They get like a handful of people buy it, and then they sit there and freak out because they put all this time and energy into creating a course, and there's no one buying. So, I mean, there's ways you can minimize that, like things like pre-selling, you know, you're building an audience and all that sort of stuff. But yeah,
again, there's work there.
It's work. Yeah.
Another thing
is good. Yeah, if you're quiet, like Corey said.
Another thing that is a really good option, especially for designers, that you've possibly got assets. And the thing with that, the hardest part with that is actually finding places where you're going to make some money from it. But it's not going to hurt to try and get your stuff on places like Envato and sell these assets, especially if you've made logos that clients have said no to, or whatever it is. You know, maybe you've done InDesign layouts and people pay money for these templates. There is probably more money and more profit in trying to do these things through your own channel. But then there's more work. So if you put something on, it's a bit like if you created a product and put it on AppSumo, they're going to do all that selling for you. You're going to sell it. But how much money are they taking? Probably quite a bit. So
most of it.
Yeah, I certainly think there's opportunities for designers who, we have stuff. There's stuff that we've done. There's things that we've created. I've got more logos that have been rejected than logos that are out in the world, you know. And I think that's the other thing too. This is sort of jumping gear quite quickly here, but it's just sort of come to mind that this is a big thing with. I find that people forget with when they're trying to find clients is that they forget their own skills, right? Like, people hire us to do stuff that sells their stuff. That's what we get paid for. Make something that makes us money. And we forget that we can do those skills ourselves, and we don't do them for ourselves. You know, like, so if you're a print person and you believe that, you know, like ads in the paper work, put a freaking ad in the paper. If you're a web person and you believe that SEO works, like, do your own SEO. You know, if you know how to do these things, we're designers, we're developers, we know how to make good stuff. So spending some of that time that you have on yourself is huge. And I think that's one of those things. And Leanne was saying her Wednesday is a business day. For me, it's a half day Friday. So I sort of do that sort of same thing. But I try and squeeze my accounting in there as well, you know, where I get everything up to date. But I think that's important. Dean said you're talking directly to me. Yeah. Was there another question? There was another question.
So what's your process look like?
Oh, hang on. Quick.
client work?
Whoop, sorry.
Yep.
Whoop. I just wanted to say around the thing with Angelina's question around how do you know if something's big enough? Like, if it's just down to if it's something that people are going, like, need to learn. You know, I think you could almost do a course on like how to change a light bulb. But the simpler the thing is, the more detail you're going to have to go into, like, you know, all the types of light bulbs in the world, like what the, you know, fluoro lights versus, you could, I don't know, it's a stupid idea, right? But you could possibly turn something into a course if people need to know about it, if it's something that people are trying to solve. And so that's where I would start. Like, what, you know, you've got this information. Don't sort of go out and look for, you know, make a solution and try and find a place to slot that. Find the things that people are sort of struggling with, and then going, you know, there's a need here.
I can make one big recommendation. So Dave Foy, who's a friend,
a legend
and friend for both Corey and I, and he's given us a lot of advice over the past year or so around courses. He actually, if you go to davefoy.com, I think he's actually building two courses at the moment. One is a Webflow specific course around moving from WordPress to Webflow. And the other course he's building is how to create a technical course, because Dave has made a lot of money from courses. And that's literally all he does is the courses. He doesn't do design work, doesn't do anything like that. He just teaches stuff. And in his emails around creating a course, a technical course, it's like, you know, it isn't about creating here's how to do this. It's having an angle for the person that they care about. So specific to them. So for him, it's like there's heaps of Webflow courses, but he's specifically going people who are using WordPress and want to switch to Webflow. And I'm scared about that. He's kind of guiding them through that process. He's kind of very well known for an Elementor design course around, it isn't about how to use Elementor, because there's a billion courses for that. There's like free videos on YouTube that run through that really well. His angle was, here's how you do a good design in Elementor. And so he kind of covered design and laying out and whatever, and building a nice website. Corey's course is not a course on how to use Oxygen Page Builder. It's how to use Oxygen Page Builder when you're going from a no code / low code solution in WordPress, or if you're going, you don't really want to sit there and go like, basically if you don't want to be a developer. So he's got an angle. You know, like my course angle is like how to sell without really being a salesy douche, like how to sell by being a good person, like, and just helping people. You know, and it's geared around people in web design. So it's like you have an angle. And so I think one of the things I was looking at with Angelita's question and made me think potentially could be the case is she's got a very broad and very general how to do something that's kind of intended for a general audience. That's what it sounds like. And I could be completely wrong if I am. Sorry, Angelita. In those cases, courses may not be the best move because it's too broad and too general. It's not really specific to a person and a specific problem they have. If you can go specific to a type of person, like an audience type, so this is where like people talk about niching or niching if you're American. So niching down and picking a specific target, it means that your stuff hits better for them. Like if I'm targeting developers, people who code, I know the problems they're facing. I've been there. I've had clients who are software developers before that I've coached. And so I know the problems they're facing. So I can make like messaging that really hits for them. And I know solutions to help with their like struggles and stuff like that. And so I can do, if I did a course for them, it'll probably work better than just a general, here's how you increase your recurring revenue. Because who's recurring revenue for? I don't know, everyone. It's like, hey, as a software developer, here's how you increase your recurring revenue. Well, cool. They will want that course over a general, here's how you offer a care plan course, right, as a developer.
Hey, Trish, do you have your hand up?
Yeah, I do. I found the hand up button.
Yeah, that's cool. I didn't know that you could do that either. That's pretty handy.
Yeah. I just wanted to say too that you don't have to just start doing a whole course, start small. Like with Nick, didn't you do an interview first and then think, hey, there's a course here? So
Yeah.
you can do just a webinar or just do a ebook, or if an article might take off. So start small and feel your way through it. You don't have to go gangbusters right from the start.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. You can turn like something that's part of the course into a product and sell it for, 15, $20. And if you get 100 people buy part of this information as a product, like, that there's an audience. It's a really good idea.
I have very strong views on validation, validating ideas before doing them. So with my course, the reason why a course came about is because I was asked to do a talk at an event. I did a half-hour talk around my sales process. That hit really well. So then I did a sales page, thinking no one was going to give me money to teach them about sales. Like, yet that had like 100 people in like, I don't know, less than a week bought it. So I'm like, okay, cool. The people are obviously interested in learning this. That's enough money for me to spend some time building it. And so I built it and it just kept kind of going. But that started from me doing a talk, people expressing interest in learning more about it, and then extending that to like a validation method, which is give me money. If you give me money, I'll do it. If you don't give me money, get lost. I'm not going to waste my time. And so people gave me money. And so I built. And so there's ways you can do that. There's ways you can validate. You validate with blog content if you're trying to do it yourself. But if you're like being asked to speak at events, that's a great way. If you're getting asked to speak at events, you've got something to say. I know people who aren't even good at what they do, who spoke at an event and their talk was good. And so they built courses out of it, about design. Like I know designers who have courses who aren't amazing designers. So it's very easy to do that. But you need to, where you've gone, cool, there's people interested in this. It works. There's enough interest there for me to test it out, test the waters with it. So like Trish said, you could, if you want to do that in a less than organic way, you could write a blog post that goes well, or you could have a lead magnet. Like Angelita said, she's got ebooks that have a lot of information, but they're not necessarily being downloaded a lot. So I'd be looking at that first and going, okay, cool. Rather than turning an ebook that isn't performing into a course, maybe I should consider like, well, why isn't it performing first? And see, because if that starts performing and people care about it, that's when I'm more inclined to turn that into a course. Rather than just like going, cool, I've got a lot of info here, but it's not really working for me very well. Let me maybe change the format of it. Now that could work. It could work really well. But I'd be hesitant because I haven't got any indicators that it would work. And I kind of like to be a bit more certain before I move ahead in something that's going to take time. I'm more likely to gamble with not gamble, but I'm more likely to risk spending money on something than spending a lot of time, because I don't have a lot of time. Also don't have a lot of money, but money comes back, time doesn't. So yeah.
I want my money to come back.
Yeah, well, I mean, I kind of like both, but hey, no.
So okay, I think we've covered that question pretty well. So was there? I think there was another question.
She touched on funnels actually. So turning it into a funnel, and so funnel, that's it's a big topic, controversial too in many cases, because funnels can work if they're done well, and they're absolutely terrible if they're done poorly. So I've had funnels at both ends of that scale, and I've created funnels for other people at both ends of that scale. I had a funnel on my agency side that the only people who were opting in was other agency owners, and so I disabled it because I was getting like annoyed with just agency owners downloading my lead magnets. So that wasn't good. But then I've got a lead magnet on my site that seems to be going okay, and like on my personal site, that seems to be going okay. So, they can work, funnels. So if, basically anyone watching this doesn't know what a funnel is, I think I mentioned it before, they download something, get a couple of emails, and then it progresses to the next stage. And it isn't necessarily buying something. It could be having a conversation. It could be buying something. It could be buying something cheap. It could be your main product. It depends what it is, but there's a process with funnels. So Funnels, turning stuff into funnels can work. Again, funnels to be done right need to be targeted, need to be specific to an audience type, and need to offer value and things like that. So if you have those check boxes there, like this is useful information for a specific audience, and it's going to progress them to essentially give them enough to take the next step, then yeah, it can be super helpful. Funnels are great because it evens out, people enter into a funnel, they download something where they're not ready to talk to you. They're not ready to buy now, but they might be ready in 6 months. And so if they download something, they go through this sequence, they kind of feel they know you and you're sending regular content, staying front of mind, then yeah, when they're ready, it could turn into a sale. So yeah, funnels can definitely help. It just, again, like everything, if they're done right.
Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of the funnel.
Yeah, I've mixed feelings.
I guess there's the technical idea of that. I mean, anything is a sales funnel, but you're specifically talking about the
There's versions with like, it's like ads. There's versions you could do with ads where people, they see content of yours and then they get retargeted with additional content. It's a pretty cool method, but it can be expensive. But again, funnels, the main reason why is, like, in agency land, reason why it doesn't work for us is because we're not niched down to a specific industry.
Yeah, that's 100% what I was going to say. Yeah. And the other thing too is we don't understand who we're talking to enough, but it's really easy for us to understand. This is why why web developers and stuff are taking your lead magnets. We're almost talking about the problems that we know and we face when we're creating these lead magnets. And people start to do stuff like, the courses and stuff that we've been working on, and you finished, and we know that audience. It's an audience we deal with all the time. And if you worked as tightly with a specific industry as we're dealing with when we're, doing a course for Oxygen, or you're doing a sales course for designers, then it becomes clear who you're talking to. And like you're saying, you need an angle. And the other thing, one of the reasons why I don't think the funnels are working with agencies at the moment is purely because the stuff that they're saying is the stuff that people are getting spammed about every single day anyway. Yeah. Like, if I want to know
5 things you need on your homepage to convert better, like, no one gives a shit, man.
Yes. We all know you can get a free audit by the next email you're going to get, because the one's coming in 2 seconds. You open up your email now, you're going to get an SEO spam email. So, put those tips on your website. It's like, I don't want these tips. So you need something really, really specific. But I do agree they can work. I'm not a huge fan. But anyway, let's look at this next question. What was it? What's your process look like for previous client work? I've kind of talked about that a little bit. How do you get more of it? How do you schedule it out in advance? I have ongoing client work for clients on retainers, which I have a pretty good workflow for, but I'm needing a better process for past clients who are no longer in my system. Angelina says she sort of does the same sort of thing where she gets in touch with clients every now and again if she sees stuff like that interests them, which is the same thing that I was saying. But yeah, I'm just trying to actually work out what the question is there.
I think the question was more around she has basically when she does that, what will happen is everyone will want their work done at once. And everyone wants it now. We have sort of talked about that, pushing back, and I've written blog posts and stuff on booking work in advance, and I book work like constantly for next month or the next 2 months, and I do that even when I've got the capacity to do work now. I specifically do that for that Feast and Famine cycle, but also I know that work comes in the short term. And that's the hardest stuff to juggle. And the thing with that is when you're having an initial conversation with a new client or an existing client that's got something that they want done, it's really easy to if you do that all the time, you can, have that in the conversation all the time, like every single saying, not sure, like I'm fairly busy, how, be looking at doing this in a month or 6 weeks. Is that okay? If someone is like, no, and you have the capacity to do it, you'll be like, all right, like I can move a couple of things around. I might have to charge you a bit of a premium or whatever. You can still get that work in the door and do it within a couple of weeks or a shorter time frame. But if you just get in the habit of saying, I can't start this for
4 weeks, 6 weeks, 8 weeks, will that be okay? You start to get people to say, yes, that'll be cool. That's totally fine. So
the key,
you're not forcing people
you need to
into
do
it.
You need to do it when you don't need to do it.
100%.
That makes sense. So like if someone was to say now, like, hey, Nick, can you change this on our website? I'm not going to turn around and do it within 24 hours. Like no chance. Even if I've got nothing on, I'm not going to do that. But I don't have nothing on. I've got shit to do. But even if I could do it within 24 hours, I'm not going to. I'm going to say, I'm really sorry. So I actually did have this last week. I had a day. It was crazy, right? So I had Wednesday where I didn't have a lot on. I think, yeah, it was Wednesday. I didn't have a lot on. I had something on in the evening, but nothing during the first half of the day. And a client reached out and said, man, we've got this opportunity. I kind of felt a little bit bad, but they're bad clients, so screw them. They were like, oh, we've got this opportunity, massive opportunity, presenting to a national supermarket chain. So Woolworths to the people playing at home. And can you do a mock-up of a login screen? And then when someone logs in, if they look at this form to submit stuff, and we just need literally 2 pages mocked up for this presentation that we're doing. And it's like we literally just found out, but we want to do this for it. So I probably could have done it. It would have been a bit like of a struggle because doing 2 pages of mock-ups, making it look right and for these guys. And I mean, their original design was done years ago now. I don't even know if I have any design files for it. So I would have had to kind of mock something up for them. Probably could have done it. But I was like, guys, there's no chance I can do this before Thursday. They were presenting Thursday morning. Could have, but no, I'm not going to do that. And now they're like, oh, cool. Like, no, that's completely fair. I understand. It's such late notice. How long do you think something like this will take? I'm like, well, probably about a week normally. And they're like, okay, cool. So look, we're going to have the meeting anyway. We'll go without it. We'll run the concept by them. And if it goes well, then there's a chance we might come back and need you to actually do something properly for it. And I was like, just keep in mind, if you want to actually working like on the web, that's a big project. And like, yeah, no, that's perfectly cool. So they pushed back. I could have done it, but there's no chance I'm going to do that because that's a really bad habit to get into of turning them around. Trey's going, all right, Trey. Oh, he ran already. But it's a really bad habit to say yes to people springing stuff on you that way. Now you can, if you really want to help someone, you could say, look, I've got things on it. I can shift them around. But I just, is that a black bear? I did not want to do that. Like I didn't want to sit there and like, these guys aren't the kind of client where I'm willing to sit there and turn things around for because they don't give the same respect back, basically. So that actually worked out really well, that conversation, because it kind of put them in a position where they're like, I know that's completely fair. We understand you have a team, they have things on. And so, yeah, you just because you can do the work when someone asks and they want something done last minute doesn't mean you do the work because like number one, I didn't want to. And number two, it kind of sets a bad precedent because then next time they're going to potentially do the same thing and think it's okay because I've did it before. So yeah, you need to be willing to push back. You need to push back when you don't need to push back. And yep. Rich is saying in the chat that he's a yes man, and people know it. Man, I used to be as well. So I'm going to give you guys a really and I don't mean this is going to come across a little bit condescending and a little bit arrogant and whatever. And I don't mean it to be that way. It's just it's so broad. It's the kind of thing that like some douche guru would say, but it's kind of true. Like if you charge enough, you don't need to be as busy to be okay. So I don't work that much. I'm not a work around the clock guy. I kind of work maybe 4 days a week. I don't really work full days. There's like days like yesterday, I didn't even feel like doing much. And so I sat there and I read a book the whole day and I sent like my screen time stuff to Trish and Corey, and they were like laughing because I had like 9 hours on Kindle for the day, right? I didn't feel like doing work. Doesn't matter because guess what? I do some work today and it's okay. So if you can get paid a premium for the value you're offering, you're not being paid based around time. If you're being paid around time, then you need to put time in. And so when you get a lot of work coming in, it's like you're overwhelmed and whatever. It's like, well, how are you charging? Because if I was working around the clock, I would expect that I'd be making probably like, I don't know, a couple of months worth of work for like a week of working like that, because I don't like to work that way. That's not how I do things. And I do charge premium for energy I've put in. I do get like, I get it wrong sometimes. Like I have clients where I've, taken on a project and I've charged what I thought was going to be a premium rate for the project, and then, messed up with how managing the client and things like that. It was a public holiday yesterday, just as a heads up, but that I actually didn't look at it like a public holiday. I was intending to work. I have things to do like for myself and for clients, but I was like, meh, I didn't feel like doing it, so I didn't. But
I was going to say,
yeah,
I was going to say about being a yes man or a yes person. That's me. It's totally me. I that's who I am. And Leanne, I think you said it already, where you're saying you're really bad at pushing back dates and doing that sort of stuff. And then, Rich has come along and said, you're a yes man. Look, that's me. I'm a people pleaser. I think most designers actually are, which is crazy, because we basically are the sorts of people that beat ourselves up with validation from other people, and we put ourselves in the situation where we're constantly seeking it every day by creating stuff and putting it out and saying, do you like this? And that's a real big thing. Anyway, what I was going to say around being a yes person and saying yes to everything and wanting to please people is I have someone that's helped me with this. And it's just being mindful about this, and 2, having a way to get around your natural instinct and your natural behavior. I kind of have a script, and it's just that I know in a phone call, I'm going to agree to it. So I just have to say, I need to look at my calendar. It sounds really good. I'll get back to you, because I can't trust myself in the moment because I just want to say yes. I actually can't. So what I need to do is give myself that gap, be mindful, this person's looking to, because otherwise I'll put myself into a situation that I don't want to be in, and I'll beat myself up and almost be bitter at myself and the client, when I could have just pushed that back. I don't know if they wouldn't have accepted that. I had another example of this with pricing the other day, and actually it was one that I laughed at with Nick and Trish, because I'd given someone a price. They rang me up on the phone and we went through it, and they pushed back on it. They wanted me to basically discount the price. They said if I could do it for this much right now, they'd be happy with it. And I wanted to say yes. I knew I could still do the work for that amount. And so I went, I'll just have a look at this in detail and get back to you. And then I got off of the phone and had a laugh at what was said. And then I formulated an email response, which was basically, it is what it is, that this is the costs. And I understand if you can't invest that much at this time. If something changes, let me know. If I'd have said yes in that moment, I probably would have been beating myself up and trying to do the work now and feeling crappy about it. So I don't think, my coach has basically said you can't actually change who you are. Like, that's impossible to change your personality traits. But what you can do is be mindful of how you behave, and then set up some processes around that. So that's all it is for me. In the moment, I'm shit. I'm really, really shit. I say yes, and I want to please people. So all I can do is make that buffer for me and say, look, let me get off the phone. I'll email you the details in a minute. I'll go through this. I'll check my calendar, whatever it is, if it's time-based or price-based, I need to look into it, and then I'll get back to you. What I'll do is I'll flick you an email. I'll do it in the next half an hour or so. I'll just get back to you. I've just got to check some stuff. And it just gives me that space to not screw myself over. So hopefully that helps. That's a big, big thing for me.
Systems and processes are huge. And sales, the reason why I talk about that stuff is because I have a process. A lot of people don't. Yep. And so if you don't have a process to do your thing, you're going to be at the mercy of the other person's process to do their thing. So pick what's going to be better for you. Is it going to be better to follow the process of someone calling you and asking for a discount and you having nothing to say except potentially yes, if you're a yes person? Or is it better for you to have a system, have a way of handling it? Have a script, have templates, They're there for a reason. It isn't because you're trying to do something unnatural. It's you're trying to combat the way they want things to work. Because the way other people want things to work, when someone's buying off you, the way it works for them best isn't the best way for you, because it means you're going to be charging less. It means you're going to be agreeing to conditions that aren't ideal. And usually it will work out to be a worse end result for them, because if you're not doing things in a way that you're happy and comfortable, the result probably isn't going to be as good. Like, you know, Corey doing a site for the fee that he wants to make for it versus a fee that's like, you know, significantly less, there's going to be a difference. Like, there's going to be a pretty hefty difference, because he's going to care more about the one with the bigger price tag, and he's going to feel prouder to do that work. So, but yes, you need to have, like, so Corey's overcome his natural yes man thing. I'm the same. If I'm on the phone, it's very, very difficult for me to say no to stuff. I've had times when I've sat there and said sorry to a client because they said they wanted to pay I think like $4,000 for a site. And I, you know, like, I'm not going to do it for $4,000, but I was like, let me see what I can do. And I was about to say, like, yeah, look, I can do it for like $6,000. And no, I can't really do it for $6,000. I don't want to build a site for that kind of site. And I would have been super unhappy with it if I got it. And I had to force myself. And so, like, you know, Corey, you're saying, like, your coach said you can't change your personality. I think you can, but it's really hard. It's really hard. You need a lot of practice, and so it's not natural for us to change who we are. And so
specifically, what he was saying for me was he can't. So I don't know if he's saying other people can, but he said I can't do that. But he did specifically say, and I wouldn't want to, because the things that you are doing are the reasons why you're successful. Yes. It's just if there's some that your ability and your need to please people works in your favor. It's just in some situations it doesn't. So be mindful of when they are, and then create that gap for you. And it's working really, really well.
Overcome. So, you know, in business, it's like you have strengths, you have weaknesses. And so you have, you know, you implement systems that allow you to take advantage of your strengths, and implement systems that overcome and plug weaknesses and shortfalls. So that's why a lot of people do automation. Even though I don't personally use much in the way of automation, a lot of people do, because it allows them to automate steps that they normally do manually and either don't like or suck at or whatever. And so, yeah, you find the stuff that kind of works for you and you keep doing it, and you find the stuff that doesn't and you change it and put a system in to overcome. And so
Rich has his hand up. Come on. What do you got, Rich?
Oh, the yes man thing, it's not all bad. For me, you know, it's led me to, it's not just about, yes, I can deliver in this time, and yes, I can do it for this price. I mean, they're potentially bad things, but it's also, can you do this kind of work? And it's stuff that I've never done before. A case in point was some web banners that I'd never built before. And it took me down a path that is really profitable for me for a long while. So it's not all bad. So I think trying to change, it's definitely, you know, I really resonate with the being mindful of it, because there are times where it can really benefit you as a business and as a person. You know, being open to stuff that you would not normally do or say yes to, potentially. So for me, I definitely resonate with the being very mindful and being aware of when you say yes. Go on the phone. That's same for me. Someone's got me on a phone, or in the meeting, I'll be like, pre-meeting, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that. Meetings there. Can you do this? Yeah, of course I can. So yeah, I resonate with that the most.
Yeah, but I think that's 100% exactly what my coach was basically trying to tell me, that the some of the qualities that I have are the reasons why things work out for me. And it's just knowing that point where you're doing yourself over or doing yourself an injustice with that habit or trait that you have, and trying to get around it. And yeah, so for me, it's there are situations where I get myself, you know, saying yes to things I don't want to, And so I was just learning some habits around that, and it's I'm still working on it.
And having a support network to let you know.
Yeah, to be honest, that's not a bad thing. And I think I've tried to get something happening in the group before with accountability buddies, and I'll try and bump that post up, see if we can actually get that happening, because I think that's really important. If you can have people that are in the same sort of situation and place as you, you can really bounce ideas around. And just, I mean, even Trish a minute ago in the chat said to never answer emails right away. I mean, especially stuff that's a little bit loaded.
I think she was saying that I don't answer emails right away because I'm really
really
publicly bad.
No, I don't do it right away because then they expect instant answers.
Yep.
And I don't. I have to not do that. Even when I can, I try to not do that, especially after work hours.
And with that, I have a habit, especially stuff that's going to be a little bit loaded or triggering, to just get on it straight away. And it's the worst thing if someone questions something or in an email and you want to respond straight away. Like I've seen examples of myself doing it. I see people when they post in the Facebook groups, I want to say this to a client. It's like, remove all of the you part from it, all of the emotion from it, and just stick to the facts. But it's hard to do that in the moment. So if you can, again, give yourself a bit of a break and go, I'll write that email tomorrow. Then you write about it.
We bounce it off each other too.
Yeah, draft it up and then look at it the next day.
Don't send it.
Yeah, it really helps having don't ever send it straight away. And just having people to talk to about it and get all that emotion out first helps so much. We rant to each other all the time.
I'm gonna do a bit of a mini rant. There's a lot of people with opinions online, which is shocking. I know, have opinions.
Where
the problem I see is when people do post in groups and they say, "Hey, here's what I want to say to clients." The amount of terrible advice that goes into there, it's absolutely shocking. And so, don't be careful who you listen to, because man, there is so many contrary viewpoints. There's so many people that sound reasonable, but when I read what they're saying, I'm like, no, don't. That's fucking horrible to do. Don't do that. That is so bad. But it sounds reasonable, and so I mean, you can always find people. You can almost always find people who will you can find a pathway that you think is okay. You can almost always find someone who's going to say, yes, that's the right way to go. Almost always, but it doesn't mean it is. Or you might find people giving you let's say countering what you want to do, telling you it's a bad idea when it's not. And so just be careful who you listen to online, especially in Facebook groups, because there's not necessarily a high barrier to entry to be in a Facebook group. So you get some people who some of
the advice is going to resonate with other people because they're at the same level. And I think this is where an accountability buddy or couple of friends really can help, because you're talking to people that are dealing with the same sort of clients or the same sort of problems. I mean, if you're doing $500 logos and you're cool with that and you're making a profit from it, talking to people in that headspace with those same sort of clients is probably the right thing for you. There's no point dealing with someone that does $50,000, branding for, Fortune 500s, because it's a different headspace. So being in line and in tune with the people that you're talking to, regardless of what that is, but I think that's where something like an accountability buddy can be massive.
I mean, how many times is there someone who is entry level dealing with entry level clients, and they're asking for advice, and you get someone who surprisingly is also actually isn't doing so well, but then tells them to act as if they're some multinational corporation.
Yeah,
dude, no, don't. That's not how you react in your situation, because it's a completely wrong context. And so, it's anyway. So just be careful who you listen to, please.
Except for in our group. Our group's fine. Please do this in our group.
Ask advice. Asking advice is good. It's just more. Just be careful who you listen to. So
listen to us. Don't listen to anyone else.
Well, so there are people that I kind of pay attention to people who give good advice. And so I listen to, I usually look at their responses. These days, I'm finding it's becoming more and more rare for me to actually give advice, on posts, because by the time I see them, there's been 100 people already replied to stuff. So it's like, well, that person said whatever, so I just like their one and that's it. But yeah, there are people who give good advice and there's people who don't. And so you kind of pay attention to the people who are consistently good, and you consistently agree with, versus people who like might be sitting there ranting about clients every day, and then they want to tell you how to deal with clients. It's like, no, like, weren't you just ranting about clients? Like for the last 5 days in a row, you're saying about how clients are doing stupid things or screwing you over or hammering you down on fees, and you want to tell me how to negotiate a price with a client? No. So pay attention to like the stuff people say, and before you start listening to them anyway. So yeah, Corey does really great responses to stuff. And most of the time, if he's replied to something, I kind of don't need to. I
just don't know how to write them short.
You're bad for Twitter then.
Yeah, I am.
Twitter threads.
Yeah, I wouldn't be good there. Actually, but there was a question that Rich asked in the comments here about, he just said, could you introduce premium retainers? Now, this is something that I've thought about and I've talked about with other people, but I've never done. I like the idea and the concept of it. I'm just bringing it up because a question was made. I don't have a solution. I've thought about it, and I think there is a place in the world for this sort of thing. I listened to a great podcast on it. If I can find it, it was David C. Baker and maybe Blair Enns, might have been the Two Bobs podcast. Yeah. I'm pretty sure that's where it was. If I can find it, I'll post a link. But they essentially talked about a concierge service, which Porsche were doing, where you basically rent a Porsche and you can just swap the Porsche over anytime that you want. So it's like ultimate premium. You can just you drive your Porsche in, drop it off, pick up another Porsche and drive off with that Porsche. And I was like, wow. And then they sort of said, well, what would this look like at a service provider's level? Like, what would that look like for businesses? And they're essentially saying, that you could sell so with retainers, the way that we look at them now is you go, oh, I've got to max this out. I can't oversell myself. And so I'll do, 3 hours a week or 2 hours a week. So 8 hours a month for my retainer and charge them X amount of dollars. And this works reverse, where they're like, I'm here whenever you want. And it's like a full wage. And you could possibly handle 2 or 3 of those types of clients and end up with like 3 wages. And I was like, that doesn't sound too bad. But yeah, it was an interesting idea. And they specifically talked about it, in the aspect of, I think, working with, I could imagine it working with staff, where you could essentially have someone that is a developer or a designer, and you concierge out a service, and that person can essentially be paid for right there and then. And if they have spare time to work on other stuff, then you're going to make extra money from them, or you do the same thing with yourself. But I haven't really thought too much about it, apart from the idea really stuck with me, and that I thought there is a possibility for that to happen in the world. It might be hard to sell. I don't know how you go with selling that, but
like anything, man, right clients, things work. So I've thought about this too. I think we may have spoken about it, you and I, once or twice, around having like care plans at like over $1,000. So that's something I've thought about before, like having something like, let's say 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 a month or whatever, and it kind of being an all-inclusive type thing, basically retainer, but essentially maintenance and work and, being proactive and all that sort of stuff. And I ultimately didn't go down that path because I don't want to do the work. Like, I like getting paid. I just don't like having to do work to get that money. So that's why it's like, no, let me, like, my care plans don't include work. So they're like literally a maintenance only service. And they have access to me if they want work done, but they're going to have to pay for the work. And so, sometimes when people ask for something small, I'll just do it. Like, no big deal. Like, whatever. I don't care if they're good clients. But yeah, so that's kind of how I work. So that way it's like minimal time. The money isn't, it isn't some crazy amount, but I don't have to do much to earn it, which I kind of like. I don't like having to do a lot of work to make money, in case it's clear. No, Nick definitely does work. But when I work hard, really hard. And I have the personality that when I start doing something, I kind of go mental on it, and like I'll sit down and start working on a design, and then I'll look up and it might be, it might be 3:30 depending on how I'm going, if I'm getting stuck on something, or it could be like 6:30 at night, and I might have been working on it the whole day and I didn't even realize, and like I only stopped because I was hungry and I haven't eaten. So I get like that with stuff, but I can't do that every day, and I don't want to do that every day. Like that's maybe once a week I might work like that. And then there's other stuff that I'll do as well that generates money without me having to put crazy amounts of time and energy in, because it's things like having a meeting with someone to talk about their business. Like I do that sort of stuff because it's it's kind of where I'm okay at, and people are willing to pay me money to do that. I have clients who will pay me to talk to their clients, because I'm good at talking about business direction, and from that developing a brief to design their site. And so I'll do that and have like brand conversations or design kickoff meetings and things like that for clients as well. And so that's good because I get paid pretty reasonable amount of money to literally have a meeting with a client and do stuff that I'm good at. So when you start doing the stuff that you're kind of good at, and you can charge, and because you are good at it, you can charge appropriately for it. And whatever appropriate means to you, my appropriate means like if I do this like a little bit, I'm making enough that I don't have to do it a lot. That's kind of what I aim for. So yeah, there was a reason I was going down this direction. Why? Oh, premium. Yeah. So like you, Corey, I didn't want to do premium retainers or anything like that. If I did do a retainer, and I do have one, which is a multi-thousand retainer, but that's an advisory retainer. And so we have regular discussions. So it's kind of like essentially business coaching. That's a whole different thing, because that's not to like a business client where I design their stuff. It's an advisory relationship where I give advice and I kind of I'm a consultant. So that's different. But in terms of actual web clients, like clients I do design work for, I don't have anything that's a kind of like a premium retainer, just because it's not the kind of business I want to run. But if you do, they can work really well. And you just got to, again, like I think I said early on, we were talking about care plans and whatever and retainer stuff. It needs to be, here's why you would want this. Like there needs to be something in it for them. There needs to be a benefit to the current arrangement. So what's the current arrangement? Well, you keep sending all this work, and I do it when I kind of can, and it might take me a couple of weeks sometimes or whatever. It's like, hey, listen, if you want access to me so I can do things quicker, let's chuck you on a premium retainer. Or it's like, hey, listen, you keep asking me all this stuff and it's getting quite big. Why don't we just do it all in one, where I do everything, and we'll call it X amount of dollars per month, a couple grand, 10 grand, whatever, like whatever amount works for you. And I'll just do everything for you. And it's kind of like having a staff member, except I'm not a real staff member. I'm a, premium, whatever. You wouldn't, for you to hire me full time, my fee would be a lot more than this. And there you go. Yeah. So Trish has VIP clients. Trish, tell us about it.
It's something I have to work more on, but I found that it's a really good term to use with. I actually use it with my clients who have been with me for like a decade, and because they're a bit lower budget, I actually give them a bit of a VIP discount. But you can also use the same concept for actual people who have more access to you and who you do things quicker for. It's just they like being called that, so it made me think of that.
Almost reminds me of with coffee places where you get your coffee cards and your stamp and you get your every 6 coffee free. Like you have these VIP cards for every single shoe store or sports store or whatever you go to, and you've got 1,000,001 accounts with people. But yeah, I'm surprised other people aren't doing more of that in our industry, or that I know of.
Yeah, I know someone who does over $1,000 care plans, and they actually literally just do what we normally do as part of a care plan, but they just charge over $1,000, and they have a number of clients. The problem is there's not actually value there, really, right? It's when you're doing this exactly the same thing that people do for 1/10 of the price, and you're not doing anything that's adding any additional value, that's a bad situation to be in, because all that happens is eventually client goes, hey, I'm noticing that it seems like you do the same thing that this person does for $100. Why am I paying you $1,000? And if you can't answer that very clearly and very strongly, here's why, you're kind of ripping people off to a certain extent. You can charge more, and it's because you value yourself more. But when you're going 10x on something, and the industry standard, even for people who are premium, is the 1/10, then you've got a problem. So yeah. Anyway,
totally agree. If you can't answer the reason why you're 10 times more expensive, because when we talk about pricing in other situations, and the reverse happens, where someone will come along and you're like, hey, I can get that done for $500. And your response is, well, go and get that done for $500. If you know someone that can do my work for $500, send them to me, because I'll hire that person, and I'll make lots of money. But yeah, so when you know that there's something that you're offering that's more, it is really easy. But if you're not offering anything more, it's going to be a difficult conversation. And I've seen that happen to people too, where they are doing that with other services, and then someone finds out, they bring on a new marketing communications manager or something like that, and they're like, hang on, we at our last place we were paying $100 a month for that, and contracts disappear pretty quickly in that situation. Anyway, we've covered a lot. I think we've covered a fair amount of this Feast and Famine. We've probably covered some other topics, but a bit of a quick recap. Some of the things we sort of looked at in order. We sort of talked about getting a runway. So that's really important. We looked at paying yourself a wage, so that you're sort of filtering out the amount of money you're getting rather than taking those big chunks. We talked about reoccurring revenue, getting started with it. We talked about some of the ideas with, say, care plans. We talked about care plans a lot. We always do. About standardizing stuff rather than giving them as optional. And we also talked about mapping out time, or allocating time for yourself, so that when you are working on stuff, you still have time to try and generate leads. Nick is playing with some cool filters now. We also looked at keeping in touch with your current clients. I think that's pretty important as well. So I don't know, did I miss anything that we talked about? There seemed to be a few other conversations after that, and my brain is a little bit fried.
Yeah, Nick doesn't work and he hates clients.
No.
Oh, we did talk about removing that yes person, the yes man mentality, and how to sort of combat that without, doing anything drastic, and just about mindfulness. And I think that's really, really important. So I think, unless anyone else has any last or final thoughts, I've got enough. I've said enough, and hopefully I really appreciate everyone for coming and having a chat. Anyone got some final thoughts? No, we're all good.
I do like my clients. Okay.
We'll leave it at that. Nick does like work, and he does like his clients. All right.
And make sure you continue the conversation in the group.
Yeah,
guys, be active in the group. Post questions and stuff in there. So we would really like to be more active in the group, but it's kind of hard. Groups work really well when people ask questions in there and start conversations, rather than let's say group mods are continually doing it. There's only
so many memes that I can post.
Yeah.
More.
What? I've got more. Yeah. I'll do one about fonts.
I really like the idea of some accountability partnerships and chats around that, because I feel like there's a lot of people that are in a similar sort of spot as me, and it'd be great for to supporting each other and bringing each other up. So
I'll bump that post up. I got a little bit of interest, and I think if we can just get enough and people sort of talking about the idea, all you really need is another person at a similar point in a time zone that's similar to you, that's working with the same sort of dollars and the same type of clients. That's all you need. So, if we can make that happen for a few people, that would be amazing, because it's a game changer. It really is a great way. I mean, something that me and Nick will do is just essentially go, we need to get shit done. I'll meet you back in 3 hours. Get off of everything. What are we going to have? What are you going to have done in 3 hours? What are you going to have done? And we'll check back. And you'd be amazed at how even something like that. It's
how little we get done.
I read half my book on my Kindle.
That's I've got to admit, that's a pretty rare situation. Like, it's very rare for me to give up on a day like early on. I did some stuff in the morning, like, but yeah, then I was like, nah, done. I just.
Hey Matt, you need those days, man. Like, yeah, you need those days.
I worked really hard last week. Lots of client meetings, and I mean, I'm talking meetings sometimes going from 9 in the morning, and some like being late. I did a webinar with GoWP that was like 11:30 p.m. my time. That day I had a 9 a.m. Meeting. The next day I had a 9 a.m. meeting. So I, like, last week was like crazy. So I was like, and I had a weekend. I'm like, nah, you know what? I actually do need a long weekend, but I had things to do. So I did a couple things in the morning and I went, done. Like, I don't care anymore. And so, yeah, so now I've got to try to figure out what I was meant to do and get it done today, but whatevs. Yeah. Anyway.
All right.
Fun times.
Let's wrap this one up. That's number 6 down. Thank you, everyone. And I'll post a replay in the group, and looking forward to continuing the conversation. So thanks. And actually going to be doing one of these next week as well, which is, I'm going to post about this in the group. We're going to start doing some sort of interview ones rather than these sort of group chats. And that's going to start every week, every second week, starting from next week. And it'll be at a different time zone. It'll be the opposite end of the day. So this one's going to keep going every 2 weeks, and then the weeks between it, we're going to do like an interview show. So I'm going to post about that in the group.
Euro friendly.
Yeah, the Euro friendly time zone.
So not Canadian friendly.
I don't know. It might be even better. I don't know. It might be in the morning for you.
No, I don't think it will. Yeah, like our evening is kind of not good time. Our late night is, but yeah, for the Americanos,
these will be much less interactive, like much less conversation.
Imagine more of a podcast kind of a vibe. On video. Yeah.
To give you a hint, the next week, what we're actually going to be doing is I'm going to have someone who does social media stuff, personal brand stuff, and they're going to actually tear down my Instagram, my LinkedIn, and to help people see what they need to be doing on LinkedIn. We're going to actually embarrass the shit out of me and tear down my LinkedIn profile and see what I should be doing and give tips to everyone else. So
if it
sounds really fun.
I might reactivate my LinkedIn then, if that's good.
So that's going to start next week and be every other week, and then we'll keep doing these on the other in between these. So every 2 weeks we'll do these group chats like this, and then we'll start the new ones.
Okay.
Awesome. All right. Thanks, everyone.
Cheers,
see you next time.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Oh, happy birthday, Leanne. Bye-bye.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday for yesterday.
Yesterday for me.
Yeah.
Bye.
2 days ago.